My fellow Americans, there comes a time when you're well past your prime, when you figure, what the fuck, I'll take the state funeral. The Chief Justice isn't the Pope, she can't keep me out of Arlington. But I figure 40 years as an ex-president is enough. Now I just want to explain why I've opted to cavork myself rather than dodder off into elder statesmanship. First, I want to say that I was the best goddamn president of the 21st century, and everybody knows that 2056 was a motherfucker, whether you were president or not. Didn't I get my face up in the 5th position on Mount Rushmore? Didn't they turn off FDR's hologram for me? Not for Reagan, not for Clinton, not for Singh or Nadidi. I deserved it, and I regret nothing. Except the nuking of Jerusalem, that probably could have been avoided. For those of you too young to remember when there were only 2 houses of Congress, let me give you a little history lesson. I was born June 4th, 2006, on the leading edge of what became known as the Rugrat Explosion, when our Gen XYZ parents finally figured out that the only way to save Social Security was to start spitting out as many little taxpayers as they could. And they went at it like demented minks on Viagra. Yes, I made mistakes. I was a senator. What the hell did you expect? And I'll admit right now that my rider to the American flag burning amendment, which also added mother and apple pie to the list, was a Class A boner. How was I supposed to know that they were going to pass the damn thing? It was a joke, for Tipper's sake. Now, every time a mom burns a dessert, it sparks a constitutional crisis. And this wasn't about my impeachment trial. Hell, why should I be any different than any other 21st century president? The only one to avoid impeachment was Bronstein, and that was because of partisan squabbling. Well, that and the serial assassin. Like I said, 2056 was a motherfucker. Hell, Hernandez was impeached 3 times and walked away clean. Of course, she had something I never had, a majority in the House of Races. Thank God Hernandez was not vindictive. After they became the majority in 2037, some Americano lawmakers in the La Casa de Razas tried to force through the Jim Snow laws, but she vetoed them. If she hadn't, the far right would have had her impeached again, and there just simply wasn't enough time in her term for another trial. Now, I took office in 2056 under strained circumstances. When the President, Vice President, and Speaker of the House are all assassinated in your home state, well, people start acting a little suspicious. Once in office, I gave a new meaning to the term party politics. I had the fine traditions of my predecessors to uphold. Bill Clinton, who toked but didn't inhale. George W. Bush, who sniffed but didn't snort. Dweezil Zappa, who tripped but didn't fall. It was, after all, during my first term that the interns unionized. I can still see them there all lined up in their little blue dresses and their berets. That afternoon, I personally presented each one of them with a badge of her office, a pearl necklace. Later, when I was being treated for nervous exhaustion and dehydration, I heard that my vice president had been shot while I was in the hospital, but these things happen. Unfortunately, there was also the Third World War. Not World War III like we were all worried about, but just nuclear war in the Third World. See, by then, everybody had downloaded the bomb. I mean, Bangladesh, Sri Lanka, both Congos, Montana, and Pango Pango. I blame the internet. And media violence. Oh yes, and video games. It was my administration's darkest hour. That and the nuking of Jerusalem. God, what was I thinking? Well, after that, my second term was a hard sell. As the first straight white male president since Al Gore, I was strictly out of fashion. It wasn't like Kane's presidency, where she came out of the cabinet and into the streets and staffed the entire White House with lesbians, or as we used to refer to it on the Hill, the third Bush administration. Remember, this was before Massachusetts made gay marriage mandatory. What saved my ass wasn't the Kevlar pajamas, although that helped. It wasn't the toxic spill discovered under the West Wing before the subpoena could be served. And it wasn't my portrayal in the First Mistress's book, How to Succeed in Washington, an oral tradition, although I appreciated the research. No, what saved my ass was the Nike endorsement. Once you've got a corporate sponsor, you're home free. Now we all know about my second term, the impeachment trial, blah, blah, blah. The great computer crash, which created all those new jobs for typists, stenographers, clerks, and carbon paper salesmen. Iraq became the 53rd state. God knows the troops weren't coming home anytime soon, so I thought, why not send home to the troops? The reestablishment of the Soviet Union, the recollapse of the Soviet Union. They still teach it all right now in the schools, still 40 years later. Well, I don't know about you, but it bores the shit out of me. So I'm ready to move on. I was born 100 years ago, and even though I could make another 30 years, I've got enough clones in the freezer, God knows, I'd rather not be here when the asteroid arrives early next March. But that's a state secret, so you didn't hear it from me. No, I'm a product of that crazy, wacky, mixed-up, fun-filled 21st century. And I really don't have what it takes to be an elder statesman like Jeb Bush. Even after they put in that new memory chip, he's still making that same old speech, and frankly, it's a little pathetic. So when I get cavorked, don't mourn for me. After all, we'll meet again next year in Jerusalem. Thank you, and good night.